And as you remember, the whole world just kind of gathered around this little island and started giving resources and all this stuff. And Megan joined in on that effort. And so she started making these trips with an organization, giving them aid and helping these other people get on their feet. And one day she came back and she says, hey, I can't do this anymore. And the organization goes, we know it's tough. Like, we know things you have to see and deal with are really hard. So we won't send you back there. It's okay. And she's like, no. I can't stay here. She said, I can't stay here anymore. I got to go there. And like, well, what are you going to do? Like, we don't have a position in our organization. No, I'm not looking to work with the organization. I know that God is calling me and asking me to go to this thing and go do it. He hasn't told me what, but I'm going to go. And they're like, what? Are you crazy? And so then she goes and looks at her fiance and she says, hey, look, God is calling me to go to Haiti. I don't know what I'm meant to do there, but I know I have to go. So I'm going to go. Will you come with me? And he's like, this doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? Like, what are you going to do? This doesn't sound wise. Gather people around her. She's utterly convinced. She says, no, I'm going to go. And even as people look at her sideways, she moves. She sells all of her stuff. Her fiance doesn't want to come with her. So she drops the relationship and goes to Haiti. And she finds herself living in a tent on the roof of a Haitian family's house of some friends that she's made over there from her past trip. She is living in a tent in Haiti. And this goes on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And then she starts walking up this hill called Voodoo Mountain. They call it Voodoo Mountain because it's really just a hill, but they call it that because that's where the witch doctor of the town lived. And people would go up there to do voodoo rituals in order that the voodoos, God would give them food or resources or whatever. And she's up on top of this hill. And she's having this moment as she's praying. And she's asking God, like, why did you bring me here? What is your purpose for me being here? It's just deep, just soul-wrenching conversation with God, full of tears. And we're like, what am I meant to do? Did I just ruin my engagement with the guy that I care a lot about with? Or did I just walk away from a great job? Were all those people right? And was I wrong? Like, God, why do you have me here? And as she prayed, she built up this resolve in herself to stay. Like, no, I heard the Lord clearly. I'm going to stay. He said go, and I went. So I'm going to stay. And as she gets up, she walks up to this child who's on the hill with her, and this child is throwing a rock at this bird in the only tree on top of the hill because Haiti is deforested. It's the only tree up there. Throwing it at a bird on the tree. And Megan walks up to the child and says, hey, what are you doing? And here's the crazy thing. She says it in perfect Haitian Creole. She doesn't speak Haitian Creole. Then the child begins to tell Megan in Haitian Creole what he's doing, and Megan can understand. And in that conversation, what you hear is the child says, hey, I was trying to kill the bird so I could have something to eat because I haven't eaten in such a long time. And she's like, well, what about your parents? What about people, your relatives? He's like, oh, I'm a rest-evac. And she had heard some stuff about that, but what she found out is a rest-evac, meaning is a child slave that their parents couldn't pay to feed themselves and feed their child, so they would sell their child in hopes that at least their child would eat, and then they would be able to eat. It's a big problem in Haiti. And Megan begins to walk away from this encounter with this kid and what happened, and things just start going off in her mind like, oh my goodness, maybe what I'm meant to do is start a feeding program up here. Or maybe what I'm meant to do for rest-evac children, or maybe a school. Could it be a school? No, that seems too big. And as she walks down the hill that very day, wondering and praying and praising God for what just happened and feeling like she has newness of vision but still insecure in what she's about to do, she bumps into the local pastor and his wife as they're walking up the hill to pray. And Megan begins to talk to them, surprising them that she's speaking in Haitian Creole because she does not speak it. And as she talks to them, she tells them what has happened. She said, oh my goodness, I saw this boy, and now I have this crazy idea of a feeding program and a school for rest-evac children. Does this sound crazy? And then the pastor begins to laugh, and then he begins to weep, and then he begins to praise God. And Megan, completely confused, goes, tell me what's going on. And the pastor looks at her and says this, "Me and my wife have been walking up this hill for 20 years praying that God would put a school for Rest of Act children on that hill."